Hello everybody, Adam Steele here, and on today's Pro Mix Academy video, I am looking at a very new feature in Reaper which helps us to answer the question, what is this plugin actually doing? This is Delta Solo. So this is something that is literally brand new and is really interesting to me. That I'm just going to switch screens to the Reaper project that I'm using. So this is a punk band that I recorded over the weekend. So it's quite loud, quite aggressive. And I've been using things like compressors and saturation plugins and all that kind of fancy stuff. And the question that I've often thought is this plugin actually making my sound better, or is it just making it louder, which makes it feel better? Now, that's been hard to say up until this point. And when I say this plugin, I mean any plugin at all that you can drop into Reaper, VST or otherwise. What is it doing to my sound? So let's just play a little bit of this song. This is a song that is literally about football, soccer. It is so typically British. Let's just play a little clip. It's quite loud and quite aggressive.
Going to the ground, singing with the crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, we score.
And so, let's have a look at, on the master bus, I've got a few plugins disabled, which are limiters, compressors, which I don't really need for this video. But this is the Black Box Analog Design HG2 MS, and this is a saturation plugin, and I like it a lot. And I've, up till now, thought it does something really cool to the sound. I still think it does, but here's how we know. So, with any plugin now, in Reaper, if you look at the top right of the plugin window, above the actual plugin itself, there's these things in the corner. There's param, 2 in, 2 out, UI, and a little knob and a tick box. The tick box is whether the plugin is on or off. That's a nice little bypass. The knob next to it is wet or dry, so you can decide how much of a plugin you want to use. But hidden under this knob is a brand new feature. If I right-click on this knob, I get the option Delta Solo, which is the difference between the original signal before the plugin and the wet signal, which is what's coming out of the plugin. If I play the song and then just go wet-dry, you'll hear as I change this knob, something will sound a little different.
Going to the ground, singing with the crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday.
So it's subtle, but I can hear a kind of an excitement in the top end. It's quite more lively. If I right-click on this and go to Delta Solo, which I can shortcut to by hitting Alt and clicking on that knob, that becomes a little triangle with an S. And now this is going to sound really weird. So we can hear a kind of a fuzzy, fitzy kind of version where we're mostly hearing snare drum and the vocal. And this is the Delta Solo. So this is the difference. This is not what the plugin's doing. I've come to realize this is what the plugin is leaving out. With the output, if I turn the output up of the plugin, we'll start to hear the actual song again, because if it's making everything louder, we'll just hear the song, but just louder, like so. So what I've done here is you could hear then that as I turn the volume up, we could hear the song again, because that was the thing. As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, the difference, if there is just a level difference, we will hear quite clearly the track. So what I've done is turn down the output on the plugin until I'm starting to hear this thing that is only the difference. It's also quite useful for level matching, so that when you turn on and off a plugin, it doesn't just get louder then, which means that you can hear a difference, but not necessarily a louder is more good difference. Quite a useful little tool. So now if I click on this triangle S, I can now turn the plugin on and off, and it won't just jump in volume.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday.
Which means now I can hear that the kind of the low mids are getting cleared out a little bit. The top end is a little bit brighter. Everything's a little bit more gelled together, but it's not because of a volume difference. That's really important to me and a really useful kind of thing. As a really good example, the old Sonox Oxford Inflator, I've long held the belief that this doesn't do very much except make things louder. And so I keep coming back to it, and a lot of people swear by it, and I'm like, it just makes it louder. So we can test that by going Delta Solo and matching the output until it's practically silent. If it's actually silent, it's doing nothing. If it's kind of quiet, then it's doing something still.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates.
You hear how quiet that kind of fizz with the snare is. I think that's taken the level of the snare down and brought everything up around it. But that tells me it's not doing much. It is doing something though, and it might well be something that is pleasing to the ear in context. So now, without the Delta Solo, we can turn this on and off.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday. 1-0.
So it's doing something, but not very much, and that's where Delta Solo is really interesting. And this also works on any individual track at all. Like, I'll just turn the reverb off on the vocal. Let's hear the vocal, the main vocal.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday.
I'll turn the plugin off because it's got two compressors, an EQ with a low cut, compression, mic emulation, all sorts going on. What's it sound like without?
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday.
It's a pretty good sounding original source, but it sounds much more refined with the plugin on. But with Delta Solo, here's the difference.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates. When you see the score, hear the terrace roar, come on a Saturday.
So by me playing with this trimmer, which is the output volume, I'm still finding that the 0 dB notch here is the least full effect. So I'm not hearing the full track as much, but I'm still hearing a lot because it seems that especially this low cut here, probably combined with the mic emulation and everything, is carving a lot of low end and low mid out of this. Which is good to know that that's what it's doing and why it sits in a mix quite well, because it's not stuffy anymore. Now, that's something that I would traditionally do with an EQ, but with the mic emulation and the saturation here and the compression that's probably got some high-end lift in there, all that kind of stuff, I know that I don't need it, and that confirms it for me, which is really useful. And so, yeah, again, here's it off with quite stuffy low mids.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates.
And on.
Going to the grand, singing with a crowd, drinking and laughing your mates.
So it sounds like kind of from the low mids upwards, it's very similar to the original sound, but the low mids downwards are much more chopped and cleaned and controlled. Even though there's no EQ doing that, it's really interesting to know that that's what my plugins are doing. So yeah, this is something that I highly recommend that you guys check out, because it's something that can really educate you on what each plugin that you have is actually doing, and not just whether you should be doing it, because a lot of the time, yeah, it's good, but it's also helpful so that you can do the gain matching thing and not just pump levels, then assume that because it's louder, it must be better, and then come back to it the next day and wonder why your mix isn't something you're happy with, because it's the same mix you already had, just louder. something you've got to be careful of. And once you get past that, by using tools like Delta Solo, you'll instantly find that you're making much cleverer mix moves like a subtle EQ or a compression without a level boost, and then confirming that that's done what you wanted. And then you'll find that mix balancing becomes easier because you're not just in a constant arms race for level. That's the kind of thing that will massively help with your mix, and that's one reason why Reaper is great. So thank you everybody for watching. If you're interested in a course on Pro Mix Academy, have a look at our Ultimate Reaper course, which of course doesn't include Delta Solo because this is a brand new feature, but does walk you through mixing and tracking and recording an entire project in Reaper right from the very beginning, with all the technical pitfalls that you could jump into, all the plugins that are already inbuilt, not just third-party stuff. There's all sorts of stuff in there for you. So check that out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.